Today, we want to talk about use cases for individual productivity. We'll get that in a little bit here. A little bit about ourselves. We're an analyst group here in Boston, really focus on the practical aspects, particularly about how we can actually use this to drive value for businesses. We really believe a lot in connecting people and learning, and this learning lab and our yearly conference are two big pillars on that. We continue to do a lot of work, particularly for teams and AI leaders who are investing and have both careers on the line and a lot of projects and a lot of visibility. It's really amazing talking to companies that are kind of in the high investment mode versus that we call like in the crucible in our framework versus companies that are in the balcony or just kind of learning and monitoring. It really is a stunning difference in terms of what's going on inside those companies here. We up to 7 AI analysts, which has been just fabulous seeing that team grow. If you want to get a weekly update from a Google calendar, let me know. We'll add it to this list. Folks don't know, we recently published our corporate buyer's guide after a massive amount of work, and it's been very well received. That's a paid report, so 2,000 to 40,000, but it's clock full information, and we'll probably end up doing we'll have to do an update. The only question is how soon, if it's going to be Q1 or Q2, but it's been great writing stuff down and getting a lot of the good feedback. Wins, people have heard, this is a framework that we came up with. It was published in Harvard Business Review. It continues to be a very useful way to think about how to re-engineer work. It's based on wins, which is on the right words, images, numbers, and sounds. It's a more refined way to think about knowledge work. And if you have specific work that a lot of your work is done that, let's say a lawyer, you have a lot more opportunities and threats from GenAI versus someone at companies or industries in the bottom left, where a lot more of the work is done in the physical world. So maybe a farmer still driving a tractor, or a heart surgeon who's still a knowledge worker, but still a lot of the value comes from actually physically being in the surgery room. We have been trying to listen to customers and people really well, and I can't keep up is something that's told to us again and again and again and again, and we know how hard it is. We have been meeting, as our analysts meet every day, weekday, from 7:30 to 7:45, and we go through the top 4 or 5 or sometimes 6 enterprise GenAI news, and we rate them. And people have, and rate them EIO, essential, important, or optional. And the target reader is the CTO or AI leader, either in business or IT side. And it's been a fabulous learning discussion. It's one of the highlights of my days. And we've got a lot of requests to actually share that. So we've been starting to share those videos, and you can get those videos online. But I know a number of people on the call here participate in it. We've got a handful of webinars and LinkedIn events coming up here. This Thursday, Andy Roberts, who spoke at our conference, he's from Microsoft, 22 or 25-year career there. He joined one of these meetings month ago, 2 months ago, talk about the plethora of Microsoft enterprise offerings, which can get complex. And he's coming back on a webinar on Thursday to walk through, answer questions, talk how things may have changed, may have not changed because of the debacle that happened at OpenAI. We have a few more coming up. September 21st, Tyler's going to join us. Tyler is a Coca-Cola artist. So Coke has been one of the leading firms in using generative AI for creative commercials and creative, and they have been working with creating an ecosystem, a lot of competitions to use GenAI to reinvigorate and reinvigorate and be creative on the Coke brand. And Tyler was one of the ones who submitted a number of pieces of art, GenAI artwork, and was one of the winners. So he's going to tell us what he's doing and his interactions with Coke and where they see that world. At the end of January, we're going to continue the theme on the case studies. Doug's going to join us. Doug's at the Martin Trust Center Entrepreneurship at MIT. They had a need of getting information into a chat box or knowledge base for their target customer. Looked at a variety of tools and chose a custom GPT, which we did a case study a while ago as well. And you can continue to see more and more things like this. The vendor shows up with the customer to walk through specifically what they did, what problem they're solving, how they manage risk, how they think about the budget. On December 25th and January 1st, we won't have Learning Labs, so 2 more, then we'll take 2 weeks off. Rosemary, you're on. You want to share what this is? Is this still open?
Yes, this is still open. So anyone who'd like to try our AI readiness assessment, just go to totheweb.com, and this will take you maybe 5 minutes to go through. And you go through and look at all the different areas from technology to strategy and so on. And at the end, you get an assessment rating. And if you can also provide your email, and we'll send you all of your input data. And we're also promoting Paul's learning buyer's guide in that as well. So please do give it a whirl. Always open to feedback as well. I will put this in the chat, and please feel free to go there. And also a thank you to Julio for providing really great input as this was being developed.
Great. Well, thank you, Rosemary. Another survey we're wrapping up as well. That's on the readiness side as an organization. We're finishing up a survey on adoption challenges and thoughts on large language models and chatbots. If you haven't filled this out, fill it out as well. It's really interesting. This is one slide. It's not surprising. Open Azure is, by far the most common one we're seeing. It's the safest one, clearly for a bunch of reasons. I certainly was anticipating that Meta and Llama would be second because we've heard so much discussion out. It's not 10,000 people responding to it, but it's interesting how these things are moving around. Conference next year, we can skip that. And so before I kick this off, I want to just jump up at the high level. We talked about, we're December, we're just a little over a year of ChatGPT coming out. Most people have only been dealing with it for maybe, people like early adopters, this cruise, maybe 10 months. A lot of people just 6 months, 4 months. We've been getting involved in a lot more employee training. And one of the things that I'm interested other people's content is the thing I'm seeing again and again is I actually assume that companies would be rolling out employee access a lot faster than they are. And I'm seeing a couple different things. One is some companies don't have any kind of policy. It's a wild, wild west. Other companies are 100% lockdown, and employees are coming in and using their cell phones and laptops to get around it. A handful in the middle are slowly rolling it out, but they want to not use the public systems like ChatGPT. They want to go through Microsoft Azure or others, so they're slowly rolling it out there. If you're a large company at all, you're dealing with a whole bunch of regulatory issues, particularly in Europe. I was talking to one company, they 33,000 employees, they have 22 countries they're in. They have 2 full-time lawyers just navigating all the different issues between France and Germany and Netherlands and Dutch and the UK and the US. And I'm starting to wonder if we actually aren't going to see at the medium and large size companies, even a year from now, still maybe 10, 15% of all employees using at these larger companies. I think the smaller companies will obviously move a lot faster. Have they done it in other industries and other trends? But do people agree with that or disagree with that? Up until 2 months ago, I was assuming that it's going to be like browsers. They're going to roll it out, and 95% of Fortune 500 employees will have access to these incredible productivity tools by end of next year. And I no longer believe that's the case, but I'd love to someone disagree or tell me why.
This is maybe a thought, Paul, from a personal standpoint, as well as what I hear from my clients. It's kind of a lack of clarity on the firewalling of, if you look at OpenAI, for instance, and how easy potentially it is for somebody to put information that would be proprietary information from the company, and for that sort of go and inform and be sort of sucked into the model from a training standpoint. I think there's just kind of a fair amount of distrust that even if these policies have been established by the models, and there's sort of representation that we're not, ingesting your information, I think people are skittish about that. That would be my take on the reason why.
And Jason, let me show you. So that's less of an access issue, more of a confidence issue. I don't want to get in trouble. Yes, I could, but boy, I've heard that scary. Those Samsung people got their hands slapped. I don't want to be the Samsung employee hung up to dry because I inadvertently put in PII information or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Rosemary, what do you see in your clients?
Well, it's interesting. So there was just a new thing that came up this past week, was that, we're trying to get approval to use different AI tools, which is like really hard for financial clients. And there's also this issue of the tools that they're currently using all of a sudden now have AI embedded in them. So do we have to go back and start getting approval to use things like, Einstein, AI Einstein in Salesforce, right? So it's just so murky. It's so murky. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Before we go to Lucinda, I'm assuming on the Salesforce one, since it's already a trusted vendor inside my firewall, that this should be relatively straightforward, but maybe not. Yeah. Lucinda, what are you seeing out there?
Well, I think that, doing the business case is also not necessarily like a done deal, because in addition to, yes, you could have private information leaked, there's also the thing like that, like, what do you do with a process that's non-deterministic and probabilistic? Like, what do you do with that? And even if you say, well, I want to do it to do like coding, doing medical cost coding by taking really complex medical records and then pulling out what was the diagnosis, what were the tests, what were the monitoring, et cetera. I mean, it's not perfect. You're still going to have somebody take a look at it. So, I mean, unless you can make the case that it would normally take you 6 hours and now it takes you 1 hour, then I think that's probably okay, as long as you can still have the human looking at that. But I think there is a little bit of fear as well of the non-deterministic parts of this, and actually reading what Alden has written about in terms of how at every step you need to suppress hallucinations. That was very interesting to me to know that, okay, there's a whole QC process, et cetera, that needs to go on with this.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
So I was actually involved in a lot of that browser rollout stuff, and it didn't go that fast. So it seems like it was instantaneous, but at least in my work, which was largely with very large enterprises at that time in the mid 90s, remember Mosaic came out in 94, I want to say, right around there, 94, 95. And I think it was probably 97, 98 before even half of enterprise employees had browsers. So that's 4 years. So the reality is it just takes a while. There will be significant inroads and significant business that gets done. Spreadsheets, I think, were even slower, although it seemed like a rocket ship at the time. If you go back and look at Lotus 123 sales numbers for the first year or two, but still it was a tiny number of total people. And so these things just take a long time. There's a lot of people, and it just takes a while to get it through an organization. And to Lucinda's point in particular, this one will be a little bit more complicated. I see it more like a spreadsheet because an individual can make use of it instantly and generally be productive. So I think there'll be a lot of that. But at enterprise level, it takes a while for this stuff, particularly because of the problem with probabilistic outputs.
Thanks, Tim. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just speaking with someone at a financial services organization today, the head of a data engineering team. And she said that, and this is a pretty large financial services organization, she said that there's some real skepticism. They're using ChatGPT, I think version 3.5, as an advisor for a lot of the pipelines that they build. And it gets a fair amount of things wrong. So they have to have a fair amount of diligence in terms of inspecting outputs. They still need real experts using it. They're getting some productivity benefits, but they're not evangelizing it to the rest of the organization at this point.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Kevin. Well, great. Well, so next two things. So I've got two slides. One slide's it's open. I just want to get everyone's personal productivity tools. And I've been really watching myself over the last 10 months and how hard it is to actually get my own, to stop going to Google for everything, or to think, oh, I've got to draft this.
Well, you got to share your slides, I think.
Yeah. Well, the first slide, it's open.
Okay, now we can see it.
Okay, but and then next slide, I've got use cases I want to talk about, but I want to keep it open first here on what are some of the cases people have are really used. What are use cases you couldn't live without as a personal productivity tool, not as a process automation, but as a personal productivity tool? Does anybody want to share? And I'll start typing them up. Mary Rose, what can't you live without?
Most obvious one is just creating content, whether it's an outline, an email, a paragraph, a whole document, purely writing, content creation, text content creation. And then I think images after that, but that's a little more complicated.
Streamline communication across customer success department at a startup. That's I use my GPT.
Say more, Val. What?
So just streamline communication based on the inputs and inquiries that our customers have. So from, I don't know, a couple customers reach out with different situations. I usually use ChatGPT in order to respond the same way for every customer, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, we get caught up and we might respond not with the right information or the right tone. So I just want to try to keep it as professional as possible. So ChatGPT helps me with that. So I usually tell it, rephrase it or proofread this response. And then since I've been training my chat for so long, I actually have a GPT that's trained for CS. Kind of gives me, just more output. It takes me a little bit longer to respond, but I'm always, they're going to see a certain level of professionalism. That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
I see. And Val, make sure I understand. So you have one chat that you keep going back to and restarting when you want to refine a response to a customer.
Yeah, I actually created a GPT it's called LenFlow CS Advisor. That's the company I work for. So everything that has customer service related issues, I drop it in there. And just any communication that needs to come out from CS, I drop it in there. Even internally,
That's great. Thanks. Go ahead, Alex. What's your killer app? Alex.
Yeah. So I think, sorry about that here. So one of the things that I use it for is, creating email subject lines. So if you have anything engaging that you want to hopefully get, done. So like either, YouTube video titles or email titles. Those have been really useful. And then also kind of an off kilter one that I've used previously before, but I've seen a lot more people use it online is business analysis. So like reading a balance sheet and actually coming up with like the analysis of that balance sheet and whether that's maybe a good company to work with or not.
What's an example of a prompt for a balance sheet that you use?
One that I used like a couple of weeks ago was analyze this balance sheet, and if I was a private equity associate, would I want to invest in this company?
That's great. And then are you using for and uploading the Excel spreadsheet, or how's the balance sheet getting in there?
Yeah, just uploading the balance sheet. Or what I'll do is copy and paste the information from that balance sheet directly and just put it into GPT.
Got it. Great. Good. Thanks. Go ahead, Martin. Then we'll go to Lucinda.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. One of the things I use it for is creating images for blog posts. I'm pretty good at the textual content, but I'm terrible at anything graphical, going as far as being pretty good at PowerPoint, but that's about it. And so I've been using Image Creator in Bing to create some nice images that I couldn't otherwise create for my blog posts. So a recent one might have a prompt. I want, and this is showing off the theme of satisfying a user with the design. It would be, I want an image of a metrosexual UX designer with his hand extended, and from his hand is a cloud of positive things like check marks and plus signs, etc., rendered in a transparent but slightly glowing fashion. So took a number of iterations to come up with that prompt and to get it exactly the way that I wanted, but it was something that ended up fitting my post very well, and something that I could no way have created by myself.
And Martin, that's great. So and the business benefit is what? So it's not saving you time. It's giving you more coverage, more views.
And it is
ideas.
Views, but it's delivering a capability that I didn't have without the AI tool.
Okay, great. And so if someone took that away from you today, you'd be frustrated. That's a tool you use a lot now.
Oh yeah, exactly right. For all my posts.
Great. Very good.
Hey, Paul, if I could just jump in on that, it actually, I would say, saves him a ton of time, because if he wants that capability, and what a lot of people have to do now is they have to pay someone because it's worth it, and then work with them and wait for it to come back, right? He can just keep going. And he doesn't have to stop and interact with someone else. Plus, there's the money he's saving for not paying someone to do the design work for him. But I think the time is the big saver here.
Yeah, and the ability to iterate quickly.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think the one thing Rosemary taught me a few months ago was putting in stock art. I mean, saying I want super realistic images to save money on stock art was a great time saver. Go ahead, Lucinda, and then we'll go to Mike. Lucinda, you're on mute.
I actually use it for research. And so researching things like how do I do an algorithm that allocates budget across multiple social channels? And it does a few things there. It can point me to articles. It can give me code. It can summarize things, so it speeds along my ability to get an approach to solve a problem. Another example was, I think, the one I gave before, where I was tasked to get create an onboarding process for technical employees at our company. And I just used that, and I just, used a prompt like use best practices, etc. So I use it for when I have a problem. I use it in conjunction with always with search. So I'm constantly going back and forth between search and ChatGPT, and then really having it summarize a whole bunch of stuff for me up front. So now I know how to move forward in a better path more quickly.
Lucinda, thank you. And I know in the previous calls we talked a lot about people liking Perplexity for research. Do you have a particular search tool you like for research?
Yes. Yep, I like it for research. I like it for research for giving non-hallucinatory citations for things. It's really good for that. I think it's like okay for other types of things for the research, but a lot of times, I mean, I don't know how often Perplexity gets trained, but like if I need something relatively recent, then I will go to Bard and use that, because I need something that tells me about like what's the greatest latest Llama type based model, Llama 2 based model. So in that case, I want to go to Bard because that'll summarize it for me, and the information will be pretty recent. If I ask that question on ChatGPT 3.5, then I wouldn't I wouldn't get that, or even 3. Or even 4, I think, right? 4 goes up to April or something of this year. So yeah, I mean, Llama 2 didn't get introduced till July.
Great, thanks. Well, Mike, and then we'll go to Adam next. Go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
I'm in staffing, so the woman who needs people at the beginning, if you're looking at a staffing firm, please give me a call. But what I use it for is writing job descriptions. If I get a lot of times managers will give job descriptions in stream of consciousness, and they don't make good job descriptions. So I can take their stream of consciousness, ask ChatGPT to make it into a job description. It does a beautiful job. Another thing that I'll do is I'll have 2 managers that'll give me job descriptions for the same job, and they'll have subtle differences in what they want with one job, and what one manager wants and another manager feels is important. And I put those 2 together, tell them to combine them, don't be redundant, and create a job description. They can create a job description that comes from 2 managers without me having to pick out which things were different in each one. So they do a great job with that.
And then, Mike, after it does that, do you QA it one more time before you put it on the internet and start searching for it?
No. But I QA it, but it really does a wonderful job.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm about to ask. When you QA it, it's really just a confidence thing. You're probably touching it up just a little bit, if at all. Is that correct?
Little touch-ups of changing a sentence or 2, or not adding something in there. But in general, it does a really good job. You do have to QA it. It does an unbelievable job.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, and we'll give him credit. He's in Boston as well. He ran into me at a coffee shop, and Mike said, we both went to Kenyon College, a college where they try to teach you good writers. And Mike said, I used to always want to be a good writer. Now I want to be a good prompt writer, which I thought was well stated. Go ahead, Adam. We'll go Adam, and then we'll go to John.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Probably, and this is with ChatGPT 4. Right, the paid subscription. The things I think of probably where in terms of, I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo, is probably best practice, thought leadership, and my own blind spot. So what I find is these language models are really good at taking the things I don't know and putting them into the no, I don't know category. And that's something humans don't do well because they don't know. Right. Once we know we don't know it, we're pretty good at learning it, but it's that bridging that first gap. So things like, what are leading theories, frameworks, and approaches to solving this kind of problem, or writing this kind of email, or whatever it is, right? And just draw from all of that knowledge that already exists. Or another thing I like in terms of blind spots is, what haven't I considered? or what are some surprising or unusual considerations? Because it typically wants to weight towards the highest average answers. So if you ask for surprising and unusual things, you'll often disclose some really interesting solutions.
That's great. And Adam, you like GPT-4 for this type of query?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's got the best reasoning I found out of any of the models.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. We'll go John and then JC. Go ahead, John.
Well, I've been using Bard and I've been using Chat and Bing, basically design classes. Design from your class, basic or intermediate. I'm not so I can go back and check it and see if they're accurate enough, and just put little nuances in there for the class I want to design and possibly teach down the road.
I mean, you fade out there, John. So what's the biggest use case for you?
Class design.
Oh, class design. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Go ahead, JC, then we'll go to Val.
Yep. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I think somebody mentioned research. I do a huge amount of market research using ChatGPT-4, and then now with the custom GPTs, I try and sort of organize it, using a set of instructions. I find that very, very useful. You go in one direction and it sort of, goes and searches, brings you back information, and then you ask the GPT to go deeper in one area versus the other area. It's kind of a very conversational way of sort of interacting with the net, really, as opposed to, Google search or Bing, where it's kind of like you put a question and you get a flat list of things and you have to go in each one of them. You don't know which one is the most relevant. So you have to go sequentially. Here, the ChatGPT, I find, understands what you're trying to do and goes to the websites and extracts the information that you're looking for based on your goals. Very, very, very helpful. It accelerates things a lot from a market research standpoint.
And JC, you said GPT-4 is typically your go-to tool?
Yeah, so GPT-4 with the browser, I mean, especially since they came out with the browser capabilities, it sort of alleviates the fact that it's older in terms of the cutoff date. So in my instructions in the custom GPT, I make sure to tell the GPT to look for the latest information. So on any given topic, go and search for the latest, pull out the latest information from your searches, so that, sometimes you have information that's stale on the internet because it keeps everything. So I'm able to get basically yesterday's information through ChatGPT-4.
That's great. Thank you, JC. Val, we'll go to you, then RJ. Go ahead, Val.
All right, just two quick ones that are very helpful for me is cold emails. So what I do is I go into LinkedIn and I download the person's PDF, the profile on PDF. I upload it to ChatGPT-4 and then tell it to give me a couple of options and write a couple cold emails. And sometimes I insert my offering in there and, there you go. You get a personalized cold email, which has some good conversions. And last but not least, being able to chat with Andrew Huberman, the new GPT that came out. It's like having him, how much is an hour with a neuroscientist that you can talk to whenever you want. So for like health tips and like, morning routines and like, all sorts of things. So I'm loving it.
That's great. Thank you. Do a few more. Go ahead, RJ. Then we'll go to Tim. And then we'll do RJ, Tim, and I want to share the sheet we're developing, and then we'll go to open mic. But go ahead, RJ.
Okay, so I just put in the chat a website that's called aiforwork.co, and I've been using their prompts. Now, if you want to see a whole bunch of use cases people could use AI for, it's there. And I've been using them, and what they are is I call them mega prompts. They're prompts that are designed to make the large language model act like a program and to do a specific business task or a personal development task, either one. And if you go to that site, you'll see many, many, many different examples. But I've been using it most lately for particular situation problem solving. And I pick the right one for the situation. I plug it into Claude because it's got a big context window, and it suddenly starts to act like a program, spitting out a menu, asking me to do what steps, ask me questions, and then it does analysis. I've been finding it extremely helpful.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, RJ. Go ahead, Tim.
One thing I don't think it's been mentioned directly, but it's something I think almost everybody does at one point or another, and I certainly do it all the time because I have a Substack and a LinkedIn newsletter, is use it to summarize. So I will often help it even to take a look at my content and suggest, as Adam was saying earlier, things I've missed or interesting phrases, titles, all sorts of stuff like that. But I usually still do 90% plus of the writing because I don't find the writing even in ChatGPT-4 all that great. But it's great for the summarization that you want to put in your social media posts. So I can usually get either Claude or GPT-4 to do a pretty good summary that with minor tweaks serves quite well as the post for the blog post itself, the short post. And then the other thing is programming. I love it for programming. And I saw, in fact, I haven't tried this, but I saw one the other day that somebody literally drew a picture. I think it was somebody at OpenAI, drew a picture of what they wanted a web page to look like and just fed that into ChatGPT that now takes multimodal and takes images, and it got a web page out of it, doing exactly what they wanted. So I've been doing even more complex things. I can now do, God forbid, JSON object unrolling, and so you can save web pages and things, which I never was even considered doing even 6 months ago.
Great, thanks, Tim. So next thing I want to show the next slide, because one of the things I'm starting to see out there is we're getting more AI leaders and teams ask us, have us working with them. And one of their missions is to get a lot more of their colleagues using this. And the questions they're asking, I'm realizing I haven't thought enough about it, is learning is, you know, how do I get 1,000 of my 7,000 employees really engaged on this? You know, am I throwing 1,001 prompts at them? Am I going after just certain use cases? Am I stepping back and waiting for people to step towards me? And, you know, to that end, we're at least, you know, continue, at least this isn't rocket science, but at least trying to find, the thing I'm finding as well is trying to find use cases that are much more specific to not just general, like ones in general. We talk a lot about the brainstorm and summarizing, but you can get more specific to different departments, and with the hopes that they start actually grabbing these and developing them as well. But do other people have thoughts or ideas? And you know, if we all the AI team, the 7,000 person company, how would we think about engaging 1,000 of those people with a KPI saying, boy, is this tool indispensable a year from now versus, yeah, you know, I went to it, I know of it, but I really don't use much of it. Mike Novak, you had your hand up?
Yeah. So I've had similar conversations, a few, not many. And with some of the companies, you know, incentivize the people you want to use it, whether it's a specific group, their team, or put together like an internal hackathon. Now, again, hackathon using the tool, not for the technologists, unless that's the engineering group you want to start using it, but also give them recognition. You know, if your team uses it 4 times this week, we will put your name somewhere or broadcast it and give them that recognition that they're doing this stuff, or put it in their internal newsletter that goes out once a week. We have our summary report. What are you guys working on? Oh, Joe, yeah, you did this. Oh, that's great. So, you know, again, that go-to-market actions that I would do with a business to business, bring it inside the house and encourage people, and then have them communicate, hey, can you show me how you did that? Can you publish that internally so we can see it? Absolutely.
So carrots and accolades is what I'm hearing.
Recognition.
Okay, good.
Whether that's, you know, by whatever form.
Great, thanks. Tim, then Rosemary. Go ahead, Tim. Or Tim, is this your leftover from before, maybe?
It is, but I can make one quick contribution, which is in any, you know, sort of change management 101 at one level, but in most organizations, good organizations certainly, the staff looks to the leaders. They want to be like the leaders. They want to get those positions over their career. So a critical issue is, do the leaders use it 3 or 4 times a week? And if the leaders start posting, hey, I did this, I did that, and you can work on what models you want to exemplify. So if you have particular targeted uses, you find the leaders who have those uses to do that and make sure people are aware of it. And that will get a lot of people interested.
Great suggestion, Tim. Go ahead, Rosemary.
So I think, yes. Am I off mute?
Yeah.
So I think I don't work with the programming team, so I can't speak to that side, but I think the biggest business benefits are likely going to happen in the sales and marketing teams. And one of the things I would suggest, Paul, is that you start with a company-wide survey to find out how people are using it right now in those companies and what they want to do with it in the future. And then you can start looking at all that data. And, you know, there's just so many survey tools that make that easy.
That's great. Thank you. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, sure. Some great comments there. I've helped people roll out a number of different types of technology. And years ago, I remember rolling out a precursor to SharePoint called Lotus Notes, and fabulous product, but unfamiliar. And we rolled out 2 applications. One of them was very corporate, which was making an interactive HR manual where people could ask questions about HR content. And that fell flat on its face. One that didn't fall flat on its face was an interactive hockey pool. And so that took off really well. So in the spirit of trying to get engagement, maybe something that's of common interest where you can have a little bit of gamification around it rather than trying to be too mainstream corporate.
Martin, do you think there's anything different in change management with GenAI versus change management for the last 20 years and a whole bunch of other things? Is change management just this new technology, or is GenAI somehow different?
That's a really good question, but I don't know if GenAI is different, but I don't think people are different, and they're appealed to by certain types of things. And I don't know what a good example would be in GenAI, but I could imagine something more engaging and collaborative and fun than something mainstream corporate, even with GenAI.
Yeah, great, thanks. Go ahead, Mike.
I think just writing emails to more than one person. If they're writing group emails and they want it to look good, people take a lot of time going through the wording of an email and how it's going to look to other people and do the punctuation and all that. And you can quickly, with a few prompts, get a beautiful email that you send out to a bunch of people, makes you look intelligent, makes you sound like you know how to write, and you didn't have to take the time to go over it and make it sound good. If you want it to be shorter, you can shorten it by saying make it shorter. It makes it more precise. So I think just through having people communicate through it would be a way to encourage people to use it.
And I would implicit in that, Mike, is helping people understand those stories, making sure many of the 1,000 people in this fictional company do understand that it will make you look a lot better if you use it. It doesn't take a lot of time.
Exactly. It takes less time because you're not having to think of how to word it. It words it for you. You can just put disparate thoughts in, and it will take those disparate thoughts and put it and make it into a well-written document that you'd send out to 1,000 people, and they're not going to say, what this idiot sending me, which a lot of people do when people send out emails and they didn't look at them close enough. They're like, this guy's an idiot, sending me this email. These emails won't be like that. You're guaranteed that.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll do one more and then we'll go open mic. Go ahead, Val.
Has anybody used Superhuman before? Now that he touches on email, it's an email app, and it basically it has an AI built in, and you just kind of give it the idea, and actually it writes the email for you, gives you option of tone. And now that I recently saw this week, when you hit Command M, it gives you the summary of the whole email or the whole email thread with the main points within the email. So it's just making life easier and more efficient.
What's this called? Superhuman?
Yeah, Superhuman. It's an email app. It's like $30 a month, but I'm telling you, it's like you can get through your email much quicker.
Put in that chat. It'd be great. Yeah, it's in the chat.
I'll put it in.
Someone did already.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. That was a good working session there. I mean, it's becoming very clear. I mean, all executives in the world understand this tool. Now they're all doing 2020. Many are doing 2024 budgeting. And, they've got to figure out, we've got one company we're working with, they are really serious about it. And the question they're asking is, we don't want to have a feel-good productivity goal next year. How do we actually measure productivity? And what really is the ROI for training? Should we just train a couple hundred? Should we train a couple thousand? Do we put this in, really get serious and put in some people's actual bonuses? Or do we just let it organically grow like a lot of other change management systems are? But let's go open mic. Who's got something to share or question or something they were blown away by? Peek a new video thing? Or go ahead, Kevin. Go, Kevin and Alden.
Yeah, I have a question. I was speaking with a colleague at Eckerson Group earlier today. We're interested if people have ideas or recommendations about tools that could help summarize and compare documents across different platforms within an organization. So you might have a Google Doc. You might have a Google Sheet. You might have entries in HubSpot or Airtable. Kind of compare documents and help reconcile different versions of the same event, the same trend, and so forth?
Good question. Somebody,
Are there any Gen AI tools that do that?
Yeah,
Sounds
it's
like I
like-
should start a company that does.
yeah.
Actually, so sorry, I was trying to find my unmute. I have a colleague that is taking recordings from meetings, documents, transcripts, so a lot of different things, putting it all together. I think he's using ChatGPT, the latest. What's the latest version? And then
So version 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and just feeding it all into the prompt. within ChatGPT.
So yeah, so now the latest one, you can actually upload files. That's the so now he can upload tons of stuff in there to get that consolidation. Yeah, so it's just
Actually,
Okay, good.
question.
Thank
So
you.
For GPT-4, can you upload multiple files at once? I don't think I've ever tried that yet. Yes, I'm seeing Liz saying yes.
I have.
Okay.
I've used it to compare different, I just did an experiment with that where I put on different PDFs and different documents and was curious of how it would attach and all that and asked them to compare and give me the advantages of one over the other, and it did. And one of my favorite things to do is to ask it, this saves me time, is I'll ask it to put it in a table form and, make the columns X or make it, compare these metrics. And what I like about it is not only does it compare them, but it'll put it in a table and then you can just copy that. And then that'll be a start as to a comparison graph. It just saves you so much time looking at that. So I just did that for a future event that we're looking at planning in April, and it did a great job.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, my colleague has also done that. I've seen it just perfectly graphs and, analyze the data, give me, graphs. He had to specify a little bit, what type of graphs, and I helped him a little bit. Okay, what are the type of graphs that you can take from this information, bar graphs, and then we ask them to create it into a graph. So yeah.
Or you can say a table too, like if you don't, like in my case, I should have said a table versus a graph. I didn't use a graph, but I said, compare those metrics. And then it sort of listed it out wrong. And I'm like, whoops, I meant put it in a table where it's easy to see the metrics, put the metrics in row by row and column by column. So I can summarize this to my boss. And it does. And then you and yeah, you gotta, you have to look at it and kind of play with it a little bit, but boy, oh boy. Huge head start. And
yeah,
then go ahead. Sorry.
So just some terminology that I heard is markdown and bullet points.
Yeah, you want to share what markdown is?
I took a training in LinkedIn, and it's like they said use the terms markdown and bullet points, and I think it's more kind of like listing things out into
Markdown is like a really simplified version of HTML. You can do like double stars and it'll know you mean to bold something, or an underscore before and after and it'll know to underline it. So it's kind of like signaling to the system that you want some formatting, but not using complex code underneath to convey that.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Alden, we'll go to you and then Martin. Go ahead, Alden.
Yeah, so the big shocking number that I heard this week is that a top private equity firm is telling its portfolio companies to spend 10% of their operating budget on AI. And that was a shocking number to me.
Do you believe that number?
It came straight from the CEO of one of the portfolio companies. So that just shows the amount of, this is not a fad anymore. Because these private equity guys, they don't spend money on fads.
But what does that mean specifically? Because AI could be doing analytics on the back end. It could be Chat GPT, et cetera. It's not.
Yeah. I think that's up to the CEO to decide what exactly he wants. Because at the end of the day, he has to get ROI from it. So whether it's Gen AI, whether it's predictive AI, whether it's employee productivity, it's that much of a big focus.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and related to that, we're not using any names, but I know two firms, they are not screwing around. 10% of the people will be redeployed next year. Full stop. Yeah. That's your goal. I already got the EBITDA in my expectation. And the question is, why are you behind? It's really stunning.
Yeah. I had a call this week itself, 30% in the customer support organization redeployed. And AI is taking over.
Yeah. That's great. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alden.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So this is a genuine question. A lot of the previous solutions design I've done is use the technology that's used very structured databases and often with a rich security model. So that simple example, in an HR department, I could have views that would show managers different content than the general HR employee. So managers would see stuff that they're allowed to see. The other employees wouldn't even know that it existed. How could you do the same kind of thing in a large language model?
Where you want certain content shown to Liz, but not Val?
What I want is to be able to create, let's say, two different roles, manager versus employee. And if you had, let's say, a list of 1,000 meetings, managers could see and query the content from all of the meetings. The general employee could query only content from open meetings.
A role-based prompt length chain filter or something.
I don't know. I don't even know how to ask the question any more technically than that.
Yeah, just create two
ahead,
chatbots. Yeah. For that, you just create two chatbots, one for the manager, one for the employee. It's just like two different documents.
Well, I think that would work if, as long as you have only a couple of roles or maybe 2 or 3 roles, so you can keep it simple. Yeah. I think for an enterprise, particularly those going through Azure, this is probably pretty straightforward. They may already do it for all I know, because you can just use your Active Directory permissions. And those are already generally grouped according to file permissions and things. And they control file permissions. So you can have ChatGPT say, Alden, for all the files that Alden has Active Directory access to, run this query.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. My naive mental model was that I'm not looking at a set of files. I'm looking at an LLM database that has fragments of content that have been extracted from the existing files themselves, and those tokens or whatever they are don't have any security or metadata associated with them individually. So there's a great big pool of content, and I want to be able to look at it one way if I'm a manager, or I want to be able to offer it as a solution designer, one way to managers and another way to general employees, even though it's this big swimming pool of M tokens.
So Martin, I know of companies that are doing that for gaming.
Mike, you're on mute, Mike. Mike, you went on mute.
I know I sound so good. So Martin, I know companies in the gaming world that are doing that, and it could be applied to your use case as well. That anytime they're using the word Abita or talking about Project X, you can't see that particular conversation.
Well, hang on. Are you talking about the output or the actual training going in the model?
The output coming, the output, not the training. The training goes in where you say, here are the key terms. But then as I access that LLM, it says, oh, you're not supposed to know about Abita. So I'm not going to show you anything. I'll black it out, or, I'll apply some business logic to get that out of your stream.
Right.
Well, great. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Martin, hopefully that was somewhat helpful, but bring it back next week if I'm sure that's a big topic. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.